Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I'm going to tell you what I know about World War III today. Now, if you recall, 2 months ago, we were talking about this gap called the Suwalki Gap between Belarus and Kaliningrad. That was back in March when we first brought this up. And apparently it's a hot topic within the last 48 hours. We brought it up as being a potential flashpoint for this war to spill over beyond Ukraine's borders and into the greater Eastern Europe. And it appears that there's a potential for that to happen as a result of a blockade that Lithuania has just put on Kaliningrad. Now, Kaliningrad, if you didn't know, it's an exclave of Russia. So this is Russia. This are the Eastern European countries, Belarus, Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. This is Kaliningrad. It has access to the Baltic Sea, very militarily strategic to the Russians. And as such, they need to keep it supplied. There's around 500,000 people that live here. It's around 3 to 4 million people that live in Lithuania. So for the Russians, that would likely be easy pickings if NATO doesn't invoke Article 5, which they may not. We've talked about the reasons why in the past, but maybe we'll talk about that a bit more towards the end of the video. It's strategic because it's a great place to put missile defense systems. And it also gives you fast intermediate access to a lot of major European cities, including London, that I think Russian state TV made a threat that they were going to nuke London in 100 seconds using Sarmat-28 Satan nuclear missiles. Okay, the new nuclear missile system that the Russians just developed. Anyways, so Lithuania has decided to blockade about 50% of products that are going into here as per EU sanctions. The Russians are really pissed about this, okay? So much so that Russian forces in Belarus have begun and are taking up battle positions on the border of Belarus. Belarus, the country that has troops doing exercises down here close to Kiev, mind the borders, okay, is getting ready for war. And now Russian troops are apparently, and this is based on my source, take it with a grain of salt, they're starting to not only get into battle positions, but they're starting to deploy mobile hospitals and large blood units. When you deploy the blood hospitals, then that's when you know that things are potentially getting ready to pop off. Now, apparently Lithuania, maybe in seeing this response, has kind of walked it back a little bit. And they said, look, we're just going to blockade 50% of the stuff, not all of the stuff, just in line with EU sanctions. Obviously, these world leaders know a lot more than some guy with a map and a fancy screen does on YouTube, okay? So maybe they know that the shit's going to hit the fan someday, and it's like, okay, let's just get this started now, sooner than later. Rather start it now than let the Russians strengthen themselves with all the oil money. I don't know what the potential reasoning is for this, but it seems like a provocation that perhaps didn't have to happen, especially when you're a country of 3 million people and you're literally surrounded by the Russians and the Belarusians. I can't understand what the motive is for that. But anyways, obviously, if the Russians are feeling bold, if they're feeling emboldened by some recent progress that they've made in the east and in the south, and they're starting to say to themselves, you know what? Maybe NATO is not going to invoke Article 5. Maybe we can just, keep knocking off all of these countries and countries that used to be a part of the Soviet Union. Maybe they're thinking that. Maybe there's even people within these countries, I don't know, that wouldn't mind being a part of Russia. I don't know, the history of this region and the people, but that's something we always need to keep in mind as Americans and Canadians and looking at these maps, is that there's people in these countries that are still pro-Russian. I don't know how many, and it could only be 10% in Lithuania's case. I'm just saying, because I don't know that, I need to assume that that might be the case. So, that said, it looks like things are going to pop off because the Russian Foreign Ministry has said that unless the transit of goods between Kaliningrad and the rest of Russia through Lithuania is restored, Moscow will respond militarily to protect its interests from provocative and hostile action. Now, there's some high-ranking Polish officials as well who've been calling on NATO to get into the fight here also with Russia, which makes me wonder if this isn't some kind of provocation. Anyways, so it's not looking good. Now, like I say, we were talking about this a couple months ago. That's why it's important that you tune in as much as possible. I know your time is very valuable, which is why I try to condense as much information to the shortest amount of time possible. And it's going to be incredibly more valuable moving forward as the currency is devalued, and we may be looking at the next couple of years of unemployment. And I just want to say once again, guys, I think, and I'm going to do a dedicated video on this right now, I'm not a gold bug. I'm not one of these channels that every video they're plugging gold. But I have a really, really good feeling that gold is going to go up in value soon. I think that that's going to be the final resting place of all of the inflation, because after 2008, it took a long time for gold to reach its peak. It didn't happen until like 2012. And in fact, the price of gold was down a lot. Now, I'm just trying to help you preserve what you have, because I do believe, in line with that video I released yesterday, that we're likely going to see a major decline in the markets that was reminiscent of what happened in 2008, or could even go all the way down to 1980. And this is the Shiller PE ratio. If you didn't watch my video yesterday, please go and check that out, because it's going to talk a bit more about that. Now, the two other big stories of the day is that there was a drilling rig in the Black Sea, which the Ukrainians hit, and the Russians are pissed about this. I'm talking really pissed. Overwhelming response, which will affect Western countries if it turns out that the attack was carried out with Western weapons. That is the message from Russia. 20 people were injured, 7 more are still missing, and I'm assuming that oil production was impacted. And they're not sure if the attack was carried out by Su-27s or by Harpoon anti-ship missiles. Anyways, they're concerned that NATO had a hand in either the intelligence component or the weaponry component. And this is what they're saying. Ukrainian nationalist attack on, I cannot even pronounce the name of the borehole, loosen the hands of Russian forces. Loosen the hands of Russian forces. This was stated by the deputy of the State Duma of Crimea, Mikhail Seremet. The end of those who decided to attack our drilling rigs will be sad. In the near future, there will be retaliation in the decision-making centers. So recall that Russia has said that they will target decision-making centers, which points to Kiev or potentially someplace in Poland, someplace outside of Ukraine, maybe a NATO target, that they're going to be targeting these decision-making centers, which of course would be a major escalation in the war once again. Urban infrastructure was attacked, thus freeing our hands. The response will be overwhelming, after which they will not recover soon. And he says that Western countries will be held accountable for what happened, the State Duma said. The State Duma deputy said, I should say. So that's just one more point of escalation. There's stuff going on in many cities throughout Ukraine, and I don't know how well versed many of my viewers are, but there's stuff going on in Kherson and Kharkiv, and so there's big things happening all over the map. All you need to know is that in spite of the fact that it's fallen off the U.S. media radar, the war is hotter than it's ever been, which I would like to get your theories about why it suddenly disappeared from the U.S. media. Like all of a sudden, it's no longer an issue in the U.S. media. You go on any major media network in the U.S. and they're not talking about it. It's like right after they got the $40 billion locked down, they pretty much dropped the issue altogether. Now, why is that? Is it because they realize that resistance is futile and they're trying to, and they know that the war is now going to expand into Eastern Europe, and they're saying to themselves, look, if we have to evoke Article 5, we're talking World War III nuclear Armageddon over a country, and this is no disrespect to Lithuanians. This is no disrespect to any of my viewers who are in the East. I greatly appreciate the information, but this is what they're going to say. They're going to say, is this country of 3 million people worth risking nuclear war? Some people would say yes, because some people would say the Russians have now been emboldened and they're going to press on and they're not going to stop because they're just going to keep holding people hostage with the nukes. So people would say, yeah, we need to check it right now. But if that was the case, I know Ukraine's not a part of NATO, they're not a part of the EU, but you think they would have tried to do more here. Maybe they did what they could, and maybe they are going to have Lithuania's back to the fullest. Maybe the US will bring in all the big guns after they go into Lithuania, but it's sure, I'm hearing a lot of crickets in US media, in spite of the fact that this war is raging out of control to the point where the UK Army Chief himself, now imagine this, 5 months ago, imagine if this happened in January. The Army Chief of UK came out and said, we need to prepare for World War III with Russia. I don't know if that's what he explicitly stated. He basically said, we have to prepare for a war with Russia, a major war with Russia, which is World War III. Imagine if he came out and said that. Well, he just came out and said that yesterday. And that cannot be understated. Or overstated, I should say, that he came out and said that and admitted what the U.S. military has not admitted, that we are going to war with Russia at some point. And the UK is terrified because they got, what, an active army of like 100,000 guys? You know, now you have a Russian army that has been cycled through this training program and has gained modern, I wouldn't say mastery, but they've gained some pretty good experience points in modern warfare, contrary to what a lot of the naysayers would say. And all of a sudden, the U.S. has gone silent. Are they scared? I mean, I would not, I don't blame them for being scared. I think the Russians are scared. I think everybody's scared to fight World War III because they know it would end in a lot of devastating bloodshed. But this guy has explicitly stated that Russia's invasion of Ukraine underlies our core purpose to protect the UK and to be ready to fight and win wars on land, and reinforces the requirement to deter Russian aggression with the threat of force and prevent them from expanding, into any other parts of Europe. So they're going to try to accelerate the mobilization and modernization of the army to reinforce NATO and deny Russia the chance to invade any other countries. But are they going to have the capability to do that is the question, and is it too little, too late? Now, Boris Johnson has put out this 4-point plan for a long-term conflict with Ukraine, in which I think they're going to try to train 10,000 Ukrainians every 4 months. I mean, these timelines that they're putting out there are pretty scary when you think about it, because, we on this channel, we tend to make predictions, and they're always too short. Like if I say the market is going to crash next week, you can bet it's going to crash in a year. If I say that a nuke is going to get dropped next week, it's probably going to happen within a year. I'm not saying that, but the potential is there. Like we were talking about this issue on the Suwalki corridor back in March, and it's going to be an issue at some point. It's just that, when you're in the fever of looking at this information, sometimes your predictions are too premature. Anyways, so Boris Johnson has had a 4-point plan, including the acceleration of arms supplies to Ukraine, the training of Ukrainian soldiers, the ongoing funding and technical support of the Russian-Ukrainian state, and the development of land routes to and from Ukraine. And of course, his military commander has said that we need to prepare for a direct conflict, not an indirect proxy war, but a direct conflict with the Russians. So that is concerning. NATO should give an ultimatum to Russia, according to Polish general. The bloc should be prepared to introduce anti-missile protection, basically a no-fly zone over Ukraine to defend its borders and Western weapon supplies. So that's still in the cards. The no-fly zone, maybe not over all of Ukraine, but part of Ukraine, is still something that would be in the cards. What else do we got going on here? There's a lot of stories I'm not going to get to today because I'm a little pressed for time, but I think you guys get the gist of what we're facing here. Southern China impacted by floods today, dangerous heat in the United States. Obviously, the crypto meltdown is ongoing. And remember when I joked about how, the world is going to be stepping away from renewables? Well, I wasn't joking. And to all those people who think, that they're really worried about this whole Green New Deal stuff, that ain't going to happen for a long. If that's something you're concerned about, if that's something you lose sleep over, look at Germany's returning to coal. All these countries are going to be returning to the old dirty kinds of energy because we're living in a decoupled world where there's no incentive anymore. There's no, global incentive. It's all about, when your populations are rioting in the streets, and that's right around the corner. It's only a matter of time because 2020 really put out this myth to a lot of the Zoomer generation that you can just get money for free and you shouldn't have to work hard for it. That you can just sit on your computer and watch your cryptocurrency accumulate money. Watch that Ponzi scheme, pay your bills. The world doesn't work that way. Of the 8 billion people on the planet, 7.9 billion have to work their ass off every single day, okay, in order to survive. And you are probably one of them. I'm sure one of them. And we're not no fortunate sons over here. And people are going to realize that, and they're going to be pissed. We're going to see a new Fight Club, a whole new set of Tyler Durdens, only these ones are probably going to go postal because they just can't handle the reality, the fact that they have to actually work for something. Now, it's just the truth, guys. Nobody wants to be a wage slave, and you don't necessarily have to be. But there's plenty of people who would love to be a wage slave. There's plenty of people who don't have even that opportunity, and they would like that as a gateway opportunity. So don't despair just because you got to get your hands dirty in life. If any of you are struggling out there, you don't like your job, you don't like your employer, you don't like the people you work with, maybe that's a sign that at some point, you will be the boss. Because I think that is a good sign, because most people are okay, to work those kind of jobs. And I have no, I would never say anything bad about a person who liked a 9-to-5 job and loved their job, no matter what it paid. It's not about, what you do or how much money you make. It's about how much you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, great. But there's a lot of people who are sold on this trip that, and they were quitting their jobs, and, you've seen all these things in 2020 about how people were tired of, working. They want to work from home now, and they don't want to have any rules. That's fiction, man. That's fantasy. Things are going to fall. Things are going to go back to the baseline real soon, and I would just encourage you to get ahead of it in any way you could. Now, if we do go into a deep, dark recession, which I think is going to be a bad one, it doesn't mean there's not opportunity. There's always going to be opportunity, guys. You just have to be able to find it. And maybe we'll do a video that talks about those potential opportunities of how you can prosper in those type of environments. Because there's always a way out, especially with preppers. You're a unique bunch of people. We're a unique bunch of people. And when we put our mind to something, we can accomplish anything. So anyways, we'll save that for a future video. I think I will end the video there, though. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section about why the US media has suddenly fallen so silent on this war issue. It's concerning for me. It makes me wonder what's going to happen next, because the war is worse than it's ever been throughout this entire thing. And right after they got the 40 billion, suddenly they're silent. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.